Hello, teachers and everybody. My name is Huỳnh, and I'm in Group 5. Today, our group will give you guys a presentation about the topic, Should Zoo be banned? I think most of you guys love going to the zoo when you were a child, right? I love going to the zoo too. Zoos are very fun. You have the opportunity to see a lot of animals that you can only see on TV, or you had to go to the jungle to see them. People always have a good time with their family and friends at the zoo, but the truth behind that may not be as happy as when people come to visit. To entertain people at the zoo, animals are captured and kept in a place where they are not supposed to be. Living away from their natural habitat and losing the freedom of find food or live can reduce the lifespan of the animals. There are several opinions that zoos should be banned because the harm they cause to animals and environment appear to outweigh the benefits. Today's presentation will analyze and give full information on why zoos should be banned. Let's get to know more about the zoos. First of all, we have the table of content right here. We will go through the introduction. In this part, we will get to know more about the zoo. Moving to the next, we will get to see more clearly the reason why zoos should be banned in body parts. And the last is the conclusion. We will finalize the purposes of this presentation. So, zoo. Zoo are the establishment that maintain collection of wild animals, typically in a park or gardens, for study, conversation, or display to the public. Often the size of sophisticated breeding center where endangered species that we protect and study. So the first zoo were created as a private collection by the wealthy to show their power. These private collections were called menageries. The model of the modern public zoo became more popular in the 18th century during the Age of Enlightenment. Next is the purposes of the zoos. People start wanting to study animals for several reasons, such as scientists want to research animal behavior and anatomy, conversation, entertainment, or any other educational support purposes. However, as many see zoo as a way to protect animals, other view it as a prison. Keeping animals in an enclosed space may provide them with food and safety, but could also cause depression and boredom for the animals. So I will hand the next part to Miss Duyên.
Hello everybody, I'm Duyên and I will represent the part of natural habitat aspects. The first one will be enclosure. Many people would agree that one's living environment is of utmost importance to one's physical and mental health. Unsurprisingly, this is also true for animals and their enclosures. You would not need the expert knowledge to know that animals are very constricted in the small enclosure in most zoos in the world. According to the ZAA standards, the average enclosure size for 1 to 2 animals is 8 feet by 8 feet and 8 feet in height. Admittedly, some enclosures are many times that size, but you must understand, even many times that size is not even enough. Okay, let's take a look at some animals. The first being the lions. They live in herds and have complex relationships with other lion herds or herds of prey. In other words, their range of activity is very far for both territory defense and hunting. But putting them in an enclosure 10 times the size of the average size would clearly not be adequate for their natural behaviors. Secondly, let's look at an eagle or a whale, for example. Both have a very long range of hunting for prey, dozens of miles even. It's obvious that even the biggest zoo cannot accommodate their natural behavior. Another aspect to talk about is visitor interaction. Most notable is on the experience zoo provide for their visitors. This ranges from feeding the animal to walking inside the enclosure, to touch, to pose, and sometimes even ride the animal. While we normally just the policies of the zoo and the works of our guides and rangers, in actually it is an invasion of their territory. Most animals are not familiar, are comfortable with the being near another kind, namely human in this case. This can lead to a lot of cases, which can trigger their fight or flight response, most of the time leading to the harm of the animal or the visitors. The next word will be food and hygiene. Nutritional problems of zoos have been raised as a concern because of inability to properly feed them in captivity. A number of threatened species, including koalas and certain leaf-eating monkeys, as well as the black rhinoceros, do not breed successfully, so seriously impeding conservation efforts. For example, the sick lion lies there because of the shortage of food. Improving zoo nutrition is especially important for species like black rhinoceros that are at risk of extinction in the wild, in this case because of poaching in Africa. Moreover, hygiene is also one of consideration. Sanitation of zoo goes from bad to worse because of the lack of weepers. The picture, as you can see, lying motionless in her cage. The lioness that got infected with a serious skin infection 1.5 years ago, still sick as her skin had many hairless spots. The lack of both condition in food and sanitation affect detrimentally to animal health. According to Dawn News, most animals appear to be in distress. The large caged mammals, for instance, the long patrician camel, the big cat, and the elephant need immediate attention. Besides, this phenomenon is not only caused by the zoo but also the visitor. To be more specific, on but two of the zoo, but I'm sorry, on but two of the zoos had hand washing facilities. Only about a quarter of visitors use them. More than 80% of the zoos, people carry food or beverage into animal areas. About a third of permit children under 6 to have unsupervised contact with the animals, and 65% allow feeding animals by hand. Almost one third of exhibit the animal had clear signs of illness. And the next part will be Đăng.
Okay, so hello everyone and teacher. I will be taking care of the natural instincts part. So I will be covering two parts. The first one, which is the breeding programs. Many people think that breeding programs in zoos is the way to preserve endangered animals. But in a 2015 study published in the Journal of Applied Ecology, concluded that unless animals in the wild are protected, captive breeding won't make a difference. Most animals confined in zoos are not endangered, nor are they being prepared for release into natural habitats. In fact, it is nearly impossible to release captive-bred animals, including threatened species like elephants, polar bears, gorillas, tigers, and chimpanzees, into the wild. Even if the animals are of an endangered species, keeping them in a zoo for the sake of the species violates their rights because the good of the species cannot be put above the rights of the individual. On the other hand, sanctuaries rescue animals who cannot live in the wild and can only survive in captivity. So what is the main difference between zoos and sanctuaries? A zoo might buy, sell, breed, or trade animals, or even capture animals from the wild, while a sanctuary does not breed, buy or sell, or do such things. A sanctuary also does not capture animals from the wild, but only acquires animals who can no longer survive in the wild. So if they get released into the wild, death will be inevitable for them. This emphasizes zoos are not preservation. Zoos are prisons, a prison that is stealing their freedom and killing them slowly. There is an obvious fact that being caged suppresses the natural instincts of wild animals. They suffer permanent frustration because there is no room for freedom, and also the captivity environment forces them to behave differently from what they would do as if they are in the natural environment, hence causing genetic behavioral degeneration, and they will lose their natural instinct. Some noticeable abnormal behavior of locked animals is running around in one place, biting or licking the bars and hugging their legs. But those are just the physical aspects. If we are looking further into their mental health, we can clearly feel or see that those animals are suffering from boredom, sadness, and they might have eating disorders and that sort of things, thus weakening their strength, affecting directly to their hunting skills. The animals exhibiting in these facilities are subject to complete control and live in a very different condition from those in which they live in the wild. Since there is no prey for them to hunt, or them being the prey for others, they will lack hunting skills and become defenseless because they don't know how to deal with the ones that prey on them, and also because they don't interact that much with the natural environment. This means their immunity system against the natural diseases will decrease significantly. So there is a quote for it. The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor wolf perfected without hunt. So I'm gonna hand the next part to Peter.
Hi, my name is Peter. Now I'm going to talk about the maintenance expenses. Now that we have heard about how the caged animals suffer physically and mentally, many people might argue that opening a zoo is a money-making opportunity for the investors and the city itself. The zoo might be an economic resource for the community as it may become a tourist attraction that generates income and job opportunities. But is it worth it, and is the promising future true in the current time? Opening the zoo that relied 70% of its income on tourism and selling souvenirs during the pandemic. To learn more about the harsh reality that most zoos face nowadays, let's learn about such huge profits that they were promised. First of all, you should learn that zoos can make money through a combination of ticket admission, souvenirs, private donation, institutional donation, and funding from the city and the state governments. Let's take the San Diego Zoo, one of the most famous zoos in the US, as an example. It is a not-for-profit organization, which means when people make donations towards it, they can get tax-deductible contribution, which is a huge help on the donor's term. And the zoo is also tax exempt from federal income tax, which means they do not have to pay tax annually. And the big surprise is that the San Diego Zoo makes around $750 million per year. But let's face the reality. Most zoos cannot reach such milestone due to lack of funds management and poor tourism. Tripping income leads to underpaid employees and destitute food and sanitary conditions for the caged animal. A museum can cut back a collection due to costly maintenance costs, but a zoo cannot afford such luxury because its collection is alive. Since zoos cannot sell or buy animals, they can only trade with other zoos, but it will take months and even years to play animals to other zoos. Such difficulties are not just prediction. They are happening right now to most zoos all over the world. The pandemic hits and zoos lose their main income. Most of the zoos have to rely on mere private donations and fundings from the government. But such funds are becoming smaller as the pandemic takes longer to end. Let's take Thảo Cầm Viên in Vietnam, a famous zoo, as an example. When the COVID-19 hit the country, the government banned all tourism activities and Thảo Cầm Viên took the biggest hit due to its need for income to afford food for the animals. No tickets sold, no souvenirs, no sponsorships. Thảo Cầm Viên is even struggling with the food for the animals, and all the employees there agreed to contribute 30% of their salary to buy food for the animals. And the same situation happened to other zoos around the world. The promising $750 million might be just a dream to most zoo owners now, so why not use this situation to sell zoo properties and use that money to rehabilitate the animals back to their natural habitat for well-performed ones? And for those who are used to being fed at the zoo, we can transfer them to the safaris. Now let's hand it to Mr. Hùng.
Thank you. My name is Quân, and I'm representing the second part of the human and social aspect. In addition, animals kept in captivity in zoos are also abused for various purposes, such as tools for human entertainment. If you have ever been to a zoo, you probably know the common activity that takes place at the zoo, such as feeding and touching the animals or taking photos with animals. For most people, these activities are completely normal. This can be the way humans communicate with animals and show affection for them. But what happens when the reality doesn't turn out the way it should? When seemingly normal and harmless activities go the wrong way? In fact, a 27-year-old ape named Joe was brought to the mobile zoo in Alabama in 1999 by a notorious Hollywood trainer, where he was kept in captivity and the visitor threw a lot of peanuts at him. These bad things happened that made him prone to self-harm, like when he gets bored and frustrated, he would pull his hair. Until 2016, after 17 years of abuse, only when People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, filed a lawsuit against the mobile zoo, he was released. What about animals used in the movie? Filmmakers and directors tend to prefer to use real animals for filming. They think that only when using real animals can make the audience feel excited, make them feel what the filmmakers want to convey. And maybe when using real animals to make a movie, if the animals can get a good shot, that can make the movie more worthwhile, and the director can get full praise. And for all these reasons, directors thought that using real animals for their films was the only possible way to make the film a success. I will give you an example. The movie that everyone has probably seen is The Life of Pi. It followed the journey of Pi and a tiger named Richard Parker, confronting nature when trying to survive on a boat in the middle of the ocean. The film, after release, was extremely successful when it earned $600 million and won many Oscars and Golden Globes awards. The tiger in the film is largely created from advanced digital CGI, and to create lifelike creature must be based on prior data about the image and object from the 4 Bengal tigers. But few people know that the real-life animals used in the movie was reportedly treated poorly on set, and his mistreatment was allegedly covered by the American Humane Association. King, the real-life tiger used in the movie, nearly drowned during the shoot, and according to people on set, the tiger protagonist was trained by a Canadian zoo owner, who later resigned from his post as the zoo director after being charged with animal cruelty. Fortunately, with today's advanced technology, when the director wants a realistic movie played by animals, real animals are not the only option anymore, but instead use computer-generated technology. Can create any simulation that still look real, make it hard for the audience to recognize it as fake. This technology has been applied with great success in many famous films. For example, a movie from Disney called The Jungle Book. The special thing about the movie is that every one of the 70 species of animals featured in the film was computer generated using technology developed during the last 2 decades that use highly sophisticated animation to replicate animal images and behavior. Another form of zoo is also condemned is the roadside zoo, which has been cited for nearly 150 violations of the AWA, which included using clubs who were too young to be handled and others who were too big and strong for photo ops. So all roadside zoos must be banned. For the fact that I mentioned above, surely it is cruel to capture animals and then keep them in captivity to entertain tourists, including forcing animals to do human will or savagely training them to act in movies is also a cruel thing. Therefore, the use of animals in zoos for entertainment purposes should be stopped. Thank you. So now I will move on to Đăng.
Okay, so now I will talk about the purpose of education in zoos. So the first thing I want to tell you about is why zoo fails. Many people believe zoos hold a crucial part in the animal education of the general public and endangered animal conservation. However, this has been proved to be wrong. We will start with the act of conservation. Many zoos, while boasting their claims about being a safe haven for animals, their actual intentions when it comes to animal safety were not so enthusiastic. Take an example for the case of Bob Parker, who was an animal rights activist. He noticed that zoos are not the most suitable place for these large African elephants and suggested moving them to the California sanctuary, where they can roam freely and be closer to their natural environment. In the course of transporting these animals, Bob said that the zoo found every obstacle to halt the transportation and they have been totally uncooperative. In response, the zoo spokesperson made claims about how the zoo has all necessary facilities and labor to ensure the safety of all animals on site, rather than explaining why they were so uncooperative. They have committed the fallacy of straw man, misrepresenting the other person's position to attack them instead of attacking the argument itself. Moreover, when it comes to passively supporting conservation, reports show that zoos also fail at this. 99% of people who came to the zoo did not have any impression of conservation and only 1% that were interested in it. On the other hand, people who show their enthusiasm towards conservation rarely become any activists, thus bringing no change to the current state of wildlife depopulation and deforestation. Therefore, most people who came to the zoo probably never became activists. When it comes to animal education for younger generations, 62% of children who came to the zoo did not have a positive learning outcome. This percent seems to be increased when it comes to unguided children. And also, a government report in London in 2010 said that zoos did not have any active effects on learning of animals of young children. So now he's going to take care of the next part.
Hi everyone, my name is Việt. As Đăng had already listed why zoo fail, now we can take a look at other efficient approaches to animal education. Some people may say that when they go to the zoo, they will have real experience when observing animals in their habitats, seeing how their lives are going, how they act, and comparing them to other species. However, with a proven track record of how poor people treat the captivated animal in zoo, it will somehow weaken the arguments that zoos are essential for educating about animals. As an alternative, these days, many devices can help people to see the real life of animals without going anywhere else but staying at home. We can say watching series about wildlife from TV channels such as National Geographic, the internet, YouTube videos, or 3D technologies with VR and AR. People even can easily walk around in a simulated environment that brings real-life experience. Moreover, the Sanctuary or Wildlife Refuge is recommended if people need field trips to have authentic experience for further in investigation or research. Seeing animal residents will be offered the best service. Besides, to see how animals live and walk around all day long is not the only meaning of animal education. To show them respect and ways to preserve them is the actual purpose of such education. Other than going to the zoo, people can get the information and be aware of how severely the human food can affect the animals or any species life. Moreover, that can help them realize and acknowledge the work done on the environment, which can affect the life, natural habitats, and quality of life. The report projects that the ocean will contain at least 937 million tons of plastic and 895 million tons of fish by 2050 from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. From the study conducted over the last few decades, this magnificent environment is under serious threat from human intervention. Marine animals in 2050 will be outnumbered by plastic. Thousands of seabirds and sea turtles, seals, and other marine mammals are killed each year after ingesting plastic or getting entangled in it. Endangered wildlife like Hawaiian monk seals and Pacific loggerhead sea turtles are among nearly 700 species that eat and get caught in plastic litter. By 2050, marine life will have probably been in its worst condition ever because of plastic. If people cut down on using plastic, the plastic will not outtrade the marine animals, and also the animal will not be killed by being entangled in plastic that leads to the death. And as human beings, we cannot lay an eye without actually taking any action. By carefully considering which work can bring about better effects on our friends, we will know which ways to protect them. And that is how we will be educated about animals. So before ending our presentation, let Ms. Huế run through our 3 main points again.
So in the end, I would like to recap 3 main factors why zoos should be banned. The first one is the natural habitat aspect. We all know that taking away their living freedom is unacceptable, as this is an act of stealing one's freedoms, thus affecting their mental and physical health. Also, since nourishment problems are a concern in most zoos, this might affect the species' breeding ability. The second factor is human and social. Zoos can take advantage of those innocent animals to make their own profit through a combination of ticket admission, souvenirs, yet they are also used for entertainment purposes, such as feeding and touching the animals or taking pictures with them. The last aspect is the purpose of education. We can see that many zoos, while claiming to be safe haven for animals, the actual intention when it comes to animal safety were not so enthusiastic. Moreover, when it comes to passively supporting conversation, reports show that zoos also fail at this. When it comes to animal education for younger generation, many children who came to zoo did not have a positive learning outcome. As I list all the reasons above, I have come to the conclusion that since zoos are carrying away freedom of animals, they absolutely should be banned. Here are all the references of the information above. If you guys want to know more about this topic, you guys can go and check it out. This is the list of names of all the members of Group 5. I think this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I hope our information about is valuable to you guys. Stay safe and goodbye.